relation and function? Kung interested kang matuto, what is relation and function? Kunin mo lang.
Good day to all of us. My topic for today is a relation and function. First of all, we need to define what is the meaning of function and relation. So, a function is a relationship between two sets of variables x and y, such that each value of set x domain is associated with exactly one value of set y, which called range. A function may be represent numerically, algebraically, or graphically. And relation is a correspondence between two sets called the domain and range, such that each element of the domain there is assigned one or more elements of the range. The only difference in relation and function, the relation is one or more and a function is one values only. Function, there should be exactly one, where the relation it can be one or more elements. A relation can be represented in table, graph, order pairs, and mapping. Let's try this example number 1 using the listing method, which is the following set or set of ordered pairs are functions. So let set of there's our order pair 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 5. So we are going to down this domain, or the first element of the domain, or the x. They are 1, 2, 3, and 4, or the first element. If you can see, it's only domain, there's no repeated domain. So example letter A is a function. Example letter B or set of B, there are order pairs 1 and 2, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 4. We're going to list down the domain. So the domain are 1, 2, 3, 4. There is no repeated domain. So again, this is a function. Or so in short, to determine the function or not a function. So in the example letter C, the orders pair is 1 and 0, 0 and 1, negative 1 and 0, 0 and negative 1. At you can see, look at the first element or the domain only. So they are 1, 0, negative 1 and 0. So there is a repeated domain, which is the 0 and 0. So in this example letter C, it is not a function. It is not a function. So it's not a function based on. There's only exactly one value of the domain. So let us proceed. Example number 2. Through mapping or pairing method, determine whether each of the following is a function or relation. So in example 1, we have this illustration. And example 2, this illustration. How you can say if this is a function or relation using mapping or pairing method. The technique is very simple. Just look at the domain. The arrow coming from domain should be exactly one only. We should not 2 or more, because if you 2 or more, that is not a function. In example number 1, if you can see A going to 2, B going to 3, C going to 3, and the D going to 1. So, the arrow coming from the domain, which is the A, B, C, and D, exactly 1 only. So, example number 1 is a function. Again, to say that is a function, the arrow coming from the domain should be exactly once only. For example, number 2, you can say the arrow coming from negative 1, it is going to, then negative 1 going to 0. So, there are two the same as 0, 0 going to 1, and 0 going to negative 2. So, obviously, example number 2 is not a function. So, using the mapping and pairing method to determine of a function or not a function, just look at the arrow coming from the domain should be exactly once only. So, if you twice or more, not a function. So, next example, number 3, using the vertical line text. This is the easiest way to determine the if graph it is a function or not a function. So, we were asked to identify which given graphs represent a function. In example number 1, this is a parabola opening upwards. So, using the vertical line text, the technique is just simple. Put a vertical line text so to be a function. This. So, should pass the graph only once again. If going to put a vertical line in a graph, anywhere is the graph, you should pass the graph. You should once. If you pass twice or more, it is not a function. So, let us try this. So this is example number 1 is a function. So, 1, so everywhere, if you put vertical line everywhere in our graph, will pass the graph only once. So, example number 1, this is a function. How about example number 2? It's right to put vertical line here. So, this is not a function. You pass in the graph, it passes the graph here and here. So, obviously, our graph in number 2 is not a function. Why? Because it passes the graph twice, so not a function. Let's move on. Example number 3, this is a circle. What do you think? Obviously, this is not a function. Because if you put vertical line here, you pass in a graph twice, and 4 is a function. And the 5 is not a function. And also, in number 6 is not a function. So remember, line is consistent of points. So if passes the line or passes the graph so many times, so number 6, that is not a function. This is example of an ordered first. This is a x coordinate and negative 2 is y. So thank you for watching. That's all. Thank you. Ilaray po. Basta